Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. And in this video, I have a variety of encounters for you, but the one thing in common is that they are all strange and or terrifying. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. So this is not a story from me, but this is from one of my friends during his time in basic. They were training at Fort Hood. They were on the final basic training field exercise. The field camp was a big clearing way out in the sticks of the base. It was 2 a.m. He was pulling guard duty, literally just lying prone in the grass with his rifle, trying his best not to fall asleep so the drills don't get pissed. He was just listening to the night noises, critters in the woods, crickets, the wind, that kind of stuff. Now, my buddy is also a rock-munching Tennessee boy from the hills, so he knows all about the woods. He knows enough to know an unnatural silence that falls all around them. Suddenly, he starts hearing something different. Distant hoots and hollers. The guard duty trainees start whispering stuff, a few token call-outs. He's thinking that it must be the drills messing with them. They get ready for the smoke, for the fight to happen. But then the drills come out of their tent and start yelling about what the hell that noise is. And this is as the whooping sounds, the shouts, are getting louder. The wind begins to pick up. There's suddenly a massive crashing coming from the woods right for my buddy. He watches as the woods in front of him explode with noise, as if a mass of animals had just stampeded through. Everything suddenly stops, still and silent. His entire company of trainees, collectively and tactically, shit themselves and almost panic. The drills shout everyone down, take charge, and get everyone to pack their stuff, take down the tents and equipment, and get the garbage, and then get in the effing trucks now. They repeat, now, we are leaving. They call for transport to pick everyone up, despite normally rucking all the way back for about 20 miles. The field exercise is cancelled a day early. Everyone passes. The drills refuse to answer any questions about it, and basically smoke anyone who asks. My buddy is basically a Sasquatch himself in stature and stoic temperament. He loves anything to do with being in the wilderness. He said that he never believed in ghosts or anything paranormal before that. He was never spooked by anything out in the woods. But he said that something about what happened that night was downright unnatural and scared him pale. The fort still has blood in its history with the Native Americans. Geronimo died there, and on his deathbed, he said that he never should have surrendered. This happened 10 years ago in 2015, and it still boggles my mind to this day. I had watch on this bridge together with one AB. He was a very young man, but very responsible and competent, and as you can imagine, it started off very boring, just the same boring stuff you always get in the Biscay Bay. Everything's looking okay, everything's looking well, and then all of a sudden, the AB tells me that he sees another ship. I look up from the console and onto the radar. I check AIS and comms, but I don't see anything. I assumed that it could be a small pleasure craft. Strange, but not entirely unlikely. I take binoculars and ask him to show me. Both of us look where he spotted the ship for a few minutes, but find nothing. I tell him that his mind is probably connecting some shapes and that it's actually nothing. But 10 minutes later, he sees it again. I get kinda rude, but check anyway. Nothing. I assume that he's just overenthusiastic. I ask him to describe the ship. He describes a huge ship with a tall superstructure and actual turrets. I asked him if he's consumed alcohol or other drugs, kind of as a joke, but also because battleships are not used anymore, and he's being an idiot. And then I hear the ship's horn. I run to the comms because I thought that I had done something wrong and that there is a ship nearby. But there's nothing on any system. The AB tells me to look portside. A huge battleship goes past us without even disturbing the water, maybe 50 meters away from us. I ask the chief engineer to come up and look at this. He sees it too. He goes pale though and tells us not to look at it directly. So I have a camp that sits by a lake in rural Wisconsin. When I get some time off from work, I really enjoy going out there to just be away from everything and just be by myself, maybe work on some hobbies while I'm there. A few years ago though, in 2022, I had a few nights where I experienced some very strange phenomena. These all happened together over the course of a week, so I would be sleeping in my camp. Around 1 or 2 in the morning, I would hear shuffling and maybe some distant laughter. I would look out the window to see what's going on, to see a group of small humanoid figures coming out of the thicket. They were about 3 feet tall. They were quite portly, although slightly deformed. They always seemed to be searching for something. Occasionally, they would look towards my direction, but never for very long. There was usually about 5 to 8 of them in total. What strikes me as odd was the fact that one of them always stuck around to the back of the group, and he wore what was literally a stereotypical red gnome hat. The gnome in the back seemed like a leader of sorts. He was always the one saying things and gesturing the others to do certain things for him. Once their eyes spot mine, I would quickly duck down and try to go back to sleep. These seemed pretty innocuous. I was still very unnerved by all the experiences. I'm not sure what they were looking for, but I'm really hoping that it's not anything to do with me. So, the last night that I saw them, the encounter went a little differently. Most of these encounters went exactly like the first one I just described. I would try to learn more about them, to find out exactly what they were looking for. But like I said, this last one was different. So I was laying in bed. I was staring up at the roof. I was waiting for these creepy gnome things to arrive. At around 3:20 in the morning, I began hearing the little footsteps. I look out the window to see the same group of gnomes that I had seen all that week, but this time they seemed to be carrying something. They were walking in a straight line with the leader at the back. The others were carrying something that looked like small chests. It's like the ones in Minecraft when you combine 2 of them together. They seemed to be walking toward the lake. I could hear them talking in a strange language. The only word that I could make out was something that started with a T, like Tupompu or something like that. It was repeated a few times with the same cadence and tone. They eventually reached the lake and disappeared into the darkness. I never saw them again after that night, but at this point, I'm honestly hoping that they don't come back. I'm not sure what they were doing, and they never came across as threatening, but they gave me a very uneasy, uncanny feeling. I don't know what they were up to, but yeah, that's what happened. Here's one from when I was still in the army in Australia. I was field infantry on a field exercise on PK at 0300 to 0400, just surveying the tree line. Suddenly, I see something moving in the short grass. I was confused, as I know for a fact that there were no enemy around. My old platoon leader were playing the enemy, and they had texted me after they went to bed. I get a slight picture of something, some really long arms or legs. It was walking on 4 legs, or maybe 4 arms, I don't know. I watched it move to a nearby tree. It slowly climbs up the tree, but not exactly. It just kind of stands there on 2 legs against the tree. It hasn't seen me yet, I don't think. It's just scanning the area. I don't think it knows what's going on. It goes back to all 4s, and starts to scurry toward a section of guys where they are sleeping. I shout the password, expecting it to scurry off. It just pops its head up and stares at me. I'm terrified at this point. I wasn't even scared until it noticed me. I let off 3 rounds. It shrieks this terrible noise that wakes people up. I start yelling that there's something over there as people run to me to see WTF I'm doing. A few people see it scurry off into the tree line. Our lieutenant gets a section of people with live rounds together to go find it. He calls it into HQ, telling them that there's an animal or something out there harassing us. I have to describe it over the radio. I am told very nonchalantly that it's nothing. The lieutenant is told to stand down. The lieutenant knows that I'm not lying. We were both deployed to Afghan together. He makes us pack all of our stuff up and move positions. I didn't really sleep well the rest of that exercise. When we got back to base, I had to explain to our commanding officer what happened and why I shouldn't be charged for a UD. I got off, but I had to be psych tested, even though a few other guys saw it as well. It was pretty BS, but I seriously think it was some kind of crawler or something. I thought they were all made up, but it was so close to all those stories that I've read about it since. My event was in the mid-80s and included my son and our dog Ginger. When we had our encounter, we were at a shelter on the Appalachian Trail in Amherst County, Virginia. It was the Cow Camp Gap shelter. It was early December and very cold. It would get below 10 degrees that night. I am comfortable in the woods, and teaching my son skills needed to survive, to me, is a life skill like swimming. It's good father-son time. We arrived at the shelter shortly before dark, made a fire for warmth and hot food. The shelter faces south and has a spring-fed stream separating the shelter from the Appalachian Trail. The trail runs with an old narrow road separating and climbing north to the top of Coal Mountain. My son and I were in good spirits, sitting, talking, and playing with Ginger. Ginger saw the figure coming out of the late twilight walking north. It was a surprise that anyone would be at that location, since the closest house was a hard 3 or 4 miles from the shelter. The figure came within 100 feet. The thing was very tall and wore a dark brown, quote, fur coat, I think. I was aware of Ginger's barking changing to something that I had never heard from her before, nor really after. Without thinking, I called out to the figure to come over and have some hot drink. Then, things got very difficult to explain. First, the creature turned to face us. Its face looked human in shape, but not human in appearance. It turned its whole body. When the creature looked at us, Ginger's barking changed. Her hind legs appeared uncontrolled. Her sounds were not barking sounds, but more like a gurgling noise. She was in great pain. I momentarily focused on Ginger, reaching down to her, which did not stop her suffering. I looked to the creature, who had returned to continuing its long athletic strides, taking it out of sight very quickly. Ginger resumed barking, her aggression warning, but not the same as before the thing had turned to face us. My son said, "Dad, what just happened to Ginger?" I was thinking, what did that thing do to Ginger when it was 100 feet away? I was not fearful, and Ginger was a handful of a golden retriever. We spent a cold night with Ginger at alert the entire time. When we made our way back to the warmth of my car the next morning, Ginger curled up with my son in the back seat and slept the whole 3-hour drive home. It would be 8 years later before I returned to the area. Ginger refused to follow me off of Coal Mountain and head south toward the Cow Camp Gap. When I got close to the woods, half a mile north of the shelter, Ginger sat with her ears perked, refusing my efforts to get her to come with me. I decided I would not go without Ginger. 15 years later, while on a Sunday drive to the town of Buena Vista, Virginia, a small town about 15 miles from the AT shelter, I would have a conversation with a teenage waitress. I mentioned my frequent visits to Mount Pleasant Trail area. She said that I should be careful and not go alone to Coal Mountain, because about the time she was born, her uncles had seen something while they were deer hunting that scared them so badly that they would never hunt or go back to that area. She was 16. The time fit to the exact time period that I saw what we saw. I've since learned that the area had a fall and winter with dogs making a lot of noise at night, with large numbers going missing. A calf went missing without a trace. The owner was uncommitted as to what was going on, but said that his grandfather had a story about the, quote, the brown man. He had not seen anything, but neighbors had. Something dreadful happened at the shelter in August of 2011. A hiker was found dead, and worse yet, half buried. I haven't checked since April of 2016, but I have not heard of an arrest. I am interested if there are any similar accounts of these things harming dogs. I'm a skeptic looking for an explanation for Ginger's actions, other than Bigfoot having a mind control capability over dogs, and maybe humans too. So I forget the exact date and the exact month, but this was late 2007, early 2008. Me and my friends went exploring way out in the middle of nowhere around eastern Oregon. We actually ended up getting lost in the woods for hours. The GPS goes on the blink and isn't working right after about the first 2 hours of hiking. It was starting to get dark. We began to hear animals in the woods, coyotes, and other larger game. I pull out my gun just for a little bit of protection to try and calm us all down. We walk out into a clearing, hoping that it's the road. There's no road. It's just a large clearing with a small, slightly beat-up ranch house and a light on in the front room. As soon as I saw the light on, I thought that could help us, so we run up to the door and start knocking. One friend points out that this could be a couple of old rednecks with a moonshine operation running. They probably won't take too kindly to us being here. So I holster the gun. I pull my jacket over it, trying to look as innocuous as possible. I keep knocking. Nothing. The door, though, is slightly ajar. I push it open, very slowly. I call out, "Hello, is anyone home? We've been lost in the woods all day, and we're wondering if you could point us to the road." I hear nothing. I say, "Hello, we're coming in." I push the door the rest of the way open. I call out again, "3 of us are in your doorway. Is there anyone here?" We walk in. The air feels thin and creepy. There's an eerie silence all around us. I pull up my gun again, and I start clearing the room with the light on. There's nothing really in the room. A little stool and a lamp sitting on it. It's an oil-burning lamp and an old rotten couch. I go back into the hallway, and I enter the next room. And now here's where things get really dirty. I hear my friend just scream bloody murder. I run back into the hallway and into the room that he's now standing with his gun drawn, ready to go. We see a very, very dry old corpse hanging in the center of the room. It's nearly completely bone at this point. There's no clothes, and we can't tell if it's a man or a woman. We put our guns away and look around the room. We see a pantry that's just slightly open and hear a light noise that almost sounds like breathing. I motion to my friend to open the pantry. He slowly walks up to it and flings the door open. There's a body covered in flies and bugs, a shotgun in hand, and just blood covering the wall. Not nearly as decomposed. We all nope the hell out of there and run away as fast as we possibly can. We look back just in time to see a figure go in front of the light before the light goes out. This freaks us out even more. One of us whips out the GPS, trying to check and see where the hell we are, but it's all kinds of screwed up. The screen keeps flashing on and off where we are, but the lat and long are both 0 and 0. At that point it didn't matter. We're just ripping through the woods in a random direction. After a while, we don't know how far we've gotten. We stop to catch our breath. We look at our GPS. We see our location, but it's still blinking back to this other one that's marked 00. We start walking back to our car that we had saved in the GPS. All the while, it's blinking back to our previous location. All of us still have the heebie-jeebies heavy. We finally get back to our car. The GPS is still flipping shit. We get in the car, and just as we're holding out the GPS and kind of trying to calm ourselves down, one friend says, "What the hell's that?" We all look just in time to see this light fly toward us. It's the oil lamp, and it smashes on the front of the car. We rip that shit into reverse and drive like a bat out of hell out of there. The GPS is still blinking to something behind us. After we get about 30 miles away, it finally goes back to normal. None of us ever told anyone about it. We never talked about it ever again. So if any of those didn't really give you the chills, I don't know what will. If one encounter stuck out to you more than the other ones, let me know which one it was down in the comments. As always, if you have one of your own, I have an email in the description that you can send it to if you'd like to, and I'll try to get back to you. And if you enjoyed this video or the videos this week, then I hope you'll like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope that you'll stick around next week. And as always, if you would like to support the channel a little bit further, then there's a PayPal and a Patreon link in the description as well. On YouTube, there are super thanks and memberships. But of course, just watching the video and just being here is really helpful as well. So with all of that, I hope you have a good week. I hope you had a good weekend. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump. Thank you for watching. Have a good week.